Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Phelan, and welcome to the Happiness Index podcast. I am here with Dan Södergren. Dan is back for the third time. I checked it out, Dan, which is a record. I think there's only you and one or two other people that have been back for a third time. So, how are you doing, Dan?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me back for the third time. I think it's more that the AI is doing so well rather than I'm so clever. It's just that the subject matter that I talk about, AI and the future of work and technology, is becoming a rather hot topic. So it's lovely to be back for the third time.
And Dan, I think those that don't know Dan, very self-depreciating humor, always talks himself down. But there isn't anyone I know that knows more about where the whole AI world is going. So I'm going to give that as your intro, and that's why I want you here today. And it's always fun chatting to you, Dan, as well. I have to add that in. But can you give a little bit of background for those that don't know you, please, Dan?
Yeah, well, my name's Dan Södergren. I do keynotes and talks and trainings on AI, the future of work and technology. I also, in fact, we met, didn't we? I think we met before this, but I think we met in person at the TEDx Brighton, didn't we, in April 2022. And I was talking about the future of work and AI. And some of the things I was talking about then, I thought we had a decade. We only really had a couple of years. So people call me, the BBC and other folk call me a tech futurist. If I was brilliant at tech future, I would have guessed it would have been 3 years rather than 10. So there you go. Timing's not always a great thing, but I tend to be able to predict the future of where technology goes. So after that TEDx talk, which is worth having a look at, it's all about the future of work and being what you love rather than what you think and what you feel, which again, it's become true, isn't it, now, because of AI and all the other stuff. Anyway, I then wrote a book called The Fifth Industrial Revolution, and that's the thing that a lot of people now get me on to talk about where we are right now and why this is the Fifth Industrial Revolution and why this is a much bigger shift than people think it might be. It's not just technology, it's actually much deeper, which is why we all have this kind of feeling around this, as well as a lot of anxiety and a lot of pain points around this, because most of us haven't lived through an industrial revolution before. Most of us haven't lived through this period of rapid change and uncertainty. And obviously that's what I talk about. That's what drives me. You could, of course, if we're talking like an advert, you could go and find me. You just Google Dan Södergren, Sodergren. Heck, you can even put it into AIs nowadays and I pop up. In fact, apparently Claude, which I use a lot and I'm very complimentary about, is apparently very complimentary about me too. So there you go. Works both ways with AI. Apparently, if you like it, it likes you too. Don't write that down. That isn't true, by the way. That is just me joking with Matt.
I think there's a really good South Park episode about that.
Yeah,
About AI that I think everyone should watch.
Oh, amen.
And
Absolutely. I clipped it and put it onto LinkedIn. I loved it that much. But there you go. That's a different conversation.
so homework number 1, go and ask AI about Dan. Homework number 2, watch the episode on AI from South Park. Dan, just quickly, we've had you back before, so I've asked you this question before, so people can scroll back if they want to know what makes Dan happy. So I'm going to switch the question for you. What makes you unhappy, Dan?
Oh, that's a good one. What makes me unhappy? Well, I could go from a personal point of view, so I won't. I'll go from an actual or a life point of view and get pretty deep about it. But I'll go from a work point of view. What makes me unhappy is when we don't realize as leaders the tremendous responsibility that we have, but also the tremendous opportunity that we have to affect change and to affect people's lives. Work is such a big part of our lives and we can help people be happier at work and that helps them be happier at home in the world. And I think sometimes people forget this, like how important work is to people, but more importantly, how important it changes. If you've got a good manager and a good boss and a good leader, that fundamentally changes your mental health, which overspills into everything. And I was talking to a friend of mine. I don't know if you've ever read this book. It's called the Lessons of History, but it puts it into perspective. If you really think about this whole thing about not only the future of work, but work itself and having the audacity or having the immense luck to be in a position where you can actually pick what you do as a job, but also you can pick your levels of happiness based on that job. Does that make sense? Now work, right? Now that is brand new. That's like 200 years old. As a species, we are, you could argue more than 200,000 years. So it's like 0.1% of the time where your brain has been in this unbelievably privileged position to even be able to make that choice. Like even before then, like agriculture, etc. 95 of us worked on the soil, right? You didn't have a choice. You might have a choice what soil you worked in, maybe, but even then you didn't. So I suppose what makes me unhappy is when people are ungrateful when they don't realize that actually the power and the abilities in your own hands. Like the destiny, the moment you want, the job you want, the life you want, that's actually more in your hands than it's ever been before. But conversely, as a leader, your responsibility is so much greater for you to be a good leader than it was before. If that makes sense. It feels like it's
I
almost
love
a
that.
contradiction,
Yeah.
and that's what makes me unhappy. It makes me unhappy when people kind of grumble, you know, oh, now I've got all this change. My God, it's not you don't have to, you get to. Like, we get to live through this turbulent time. Well, but we also get the chance where we can fundamentally change society and businesses as we know it, as well as just exist on a planet which is spinning through the universe. We also get the chance to change what that planet might be like. That's an amazing, exciting time.
I love that, Dan. I love that. And so positive as well. We're going to get into some data now, which
Hmm.
is so we're going to look at some of the Personio research that came out recently that you commented on. So just to give people the background, insights come from about 3,000 senior HR directors and about 6,000 employees. So it's a HR leaders report from across Europe.
It's the
Now
biggest
you
one,
had a
Matt. It's the biggest one. It's the
sorry,
biggest
Dan.
HR. It's the biggest HR leadership survey that's ever been done. It's the biggest in Europe. It's that's why I got so excited by it. It's like you say, 9,000 employees, but 3,000 HR leaders and senior HR leaders. It's a stunning piece of work. And so yeah, I take no credit for it. Basani has done a fantastic job of making it. So there you go.
So, Dan, you had a great quote in there. I read it this morning, and it really it's a funny one to read because you read it and you're like, yeah, because it's kind of like something I've been thinking about, almost like AI is almost like your karma, but this really brings it into a work perspective. And I just want to read it out to everyone slowly because that's how my brain works. Your quote: AI amplifies the leadership culture you already have. I'm just going to leave a gap there, and I'm going to read it again, Dad, because when I read it, you go, ooh. So I'm just going to read it again. So AI amplifies the leadership culture you already have.
Mm.
Take us through that, Dad.
Well, and this is the reason why a lot of people, a lot of businesses are not liking this fifth industrial revolution, right? Now, if you look at what we call the fifth industrial revolution, artificial intelligence, the book's about 4 different intelligences: artificial intelligence, organization intelligence, independent intelligence, and the last one, emotional intelligence. And you need all those 4 intelligences to really grab hold of this fifth industrial revolution. Without them, you're in trouble. And I say this now more often than I used to, which is the psychology is more important than the technology. Yeah, like the people bit is much more important than the technology bit. The technology stuff that's happening right now is breathtaking, by the way. But AI simply amplifies the music you're already playing. The problem is that most people didn't realize they didn't like the music. Like they didn't realize that they didn't like the sound of their own voice, or more importantly, but when it's amplified and everyone can hear, they suddenly realize they're saying the wrong things. AI gives us this amazing opportunity to become 40% more productive. But what if we're all 40% more productive, but we were doing the wrong things? And especially in
Absolutely.
leadership. So what happens if leadership was foisted upon you? The work that I used to do with your flock kind of always proved this. And I think I say later on in the report, AI is this moment not only just of amplification, but it's going to make you look at yourself in a lot more detail than perhaps you're comfortable with. Because this moment of the fifth industrial revolution, which is the external force upon us, puts us under immense pressure. It's a period of immense uncertainty and then rapid change. Yeah. And that's when leadership is needed more than ever.
Yeah.
Now communication's needed maybe 10 times more than it was before.
Yeah.
And again, this puts us under immense pressure and strain and scrutiny because leaders suddenly have got to lead. Internal comms teams have now got to do internal comms, right? Like, but you have to do it en masse, at a scale, and effectively. And it's mind blowing how many people, don't really want to do that. Totally fine. If you've had a leadership foisted upon you, maybe you shouldn't be leading. If you're still leading with the idea of command and conquer, and you tell people what to do and you're the boss, this is not going to. This time will not be for you. And I
Yeah.
say that hand on heart, knowing that I get told off for saying that. And I get there's a lot of people out there, and I know we're all different people, and I know psychology, and there's neurodivergence, and there's loads of other factors that come into this, as well as a belief in the past, etc. But AI doesn't care about that. AI doesn't care that you're not a very good leader, but that's because it doesn't have to, does it? It's a tool. It's an amplification unit. It's going to amplify your message. Now,
Yeah.
should you be scared of that? No, but you should really work on yourself a lot more and work on the culture of your company more than you did before, because
Yeah.
people are going to leave. And when people leave your company, you don't really have a company,
Yeah.
because a company is just made of people.
Absolutely. And that's because the stat is comes out of the report is the data shows 39% of HR leaders report deteriorating employee engagement. And in your example, I remember an early business book of someone like digging a hole, but they're digging the hole in the wrong direction. And there's sort of two sides to it as well, isn't there? If you've got the wrong direction, the AI is going to make you go quicker in that. And then if you've got the culture, you're going to end up like eating yourself quicker. So it all amplifies even more, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a great analogy you gave there, a metaphor you gave for digging a hole. AI is like having a digger when before you were just using shovels, and now suddenly
Yeah.
you've got a digger, and then suddenly AI then gives you 2 sticks of dynamite. These are all kind of it does make me smile that we the digging a hole analogy, because it all goes back to it's what we used to do, isn't it? We used to dig holes and stuff, didn't we? There we go. But now if you look at it, and this is why it's going to be so exciting, is because it's double whammy, right? You're using a shovels to dig a hole, and suddenly you've got a digger. But more importantly, you've suddenly got a digger and you don't know how to use it, or you do and you start breaking stuff, or you didn't realize there's a water pipe there and you hit the water pipe, right?
Yeah.
How many problems are people creating, and how many people are not trained to use AI properly in businesses? I mean, the stat is something ridiculous. Like, I think it was something like 64% of people want more AI training and don't think they've been given enough.
Yeah.
Like that's that's far too many people, right?
Yeah.
And you were actually, this came from the report as well. This really stuck in my brain. You're 35% more likely to be looking for a job because you haven't had enough AI training. Now that means that AI then becomes a retention. AI training becomes a retention problem. But if you really think about it as a leader, what happens if you decided that you weren't going to give everyone a computer,
Yeah.
but right now you're not giving everyone AI?
Yeah.
What do you expect them to do? But also, AI is so easy to learn and do. They've done it already. Like, it's something like 66% of people. I'm looking at the thing, but this comes from a different report actually, but by Gusto. Something like 66, maybe 68, and it depends if which job you have, etc. But just en masse, people use AI, but don't tell their boss they're using AI, or their leadership they're using AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now this is, and I've talked about this in the book. I did another book about the leadership's guide to the times of AI, because it's so important we get this leadership piece right. But this means you have what they now call, it was 2 or 3 years ago I wrote the book. I called them the secret cyborgs. These people secretly using it. But actually it's now called shadow AI. Now you might think shadow AI isn't that worrying. It's just people having a go on ChatGPT and working it out for themselves. But it is worrying because they're doing it. 97% of people don't pay for ChatGPT. So most of them are doing it for free on a system which literally reads what they do with your company information.
Yeah.
Now, the cybersecurity risks on that are insane anyway, but it comes from the fact you haven't given them the resources that you should have as a leader.
Yeah.
Because you haven't said, this is how number one, you haven't trained them. 54% of companies don't have an AI policy. Like, that is terrifying. Because they don't even have an AI policy. So the employee, and I'm working with a couple of clients around this very piece at the moment, and we're not doing it quickly enough because nobody is. But right now, your employees most probably know a bit about AI. They're a bit cross and frustrated because you didn't teach them it and they had to do it themselves. They might be using their own systems to do stuff which they shouldn't be doing. They're doing stuff outside of the company environment. They're doing it untrained, unsupervised, with a thing which data mines them, and at the same time, they're doing this a time of mass uncertainty. And then we're wondering why people are unhappy.
Yeah. Dan, there's a couple of things. I think we'll keep our analogy going, because now I'm imagining a building site where there's no health and safety regulations. No one's been trained to drive the diggers, and people are putting out houses with all this great technology. But it's people are getting knocked over, houses are falling down,
Yeah, exactly.
customers are unhappy, which brings me on to Deloitte and the AI situation in Australia. Did you see about that, about the refund and the AI slop thing, Dan?
Yeah, of course. The £440,000 they had to give back, right?
Yeah.
But does it say how much they charged them to start off with? That's the funny thing.
The point that I want to bring up is, of all the words and phrases that have been invented in the last 10 years, AI slop is my favourite one, because you can see it an absolute mile off, can't you? But the amount of people that are sending stuff round that is shocking. And I just want to come back to your training point, because I know this is something you're passionate about, Dan.
Mm.
How do you get putting training in place and self-learning together? Because if I take you as an example, Dan, you've gone off, and this is why I love following you. You're experimenting all over the place, aren't you? And you're learning yourself.
Yeah.
And that's part of the fun. It's part of how you learn. But then there's the danger that someone's like uploading their financial accounts to an AI and suddenly the AI has access to private information or maybe even crazy stuff like payroll. And how do you go, taking back to the challenge you've said, we don't want all these people going around these diggers without being trained on it.
Yeah.
How do we create a culture where employees can be learning, experimenting, and trying, but not putting out potentially really damaging information into the ether that's training an AI model? Talk us through that, Dan. I know that's
Well,
your expertise.
Well, what I do personally, I would never tell any company to do. What I do personally is reckless, and I wouldn't do it. But only because I'm an experimenter, and it's just what I do. So I've downloaded 8 different AI things. I have small language models that I have inside different machines. I'm a massive geek, and I work horrendous amount of hours just because I'm intellectually interested in something. That is not, it's not a healthy company environment I create for myself. You wouldn't want to do that en masse with loads of people. It wouldn't be fair on them, but you'd have a tremendously productive company if you did. But it might be a bit weird. Anyway, but my own neurodivergence means that I have the joy of being hyper-focused around certain things, and therefore I have this ability that others don't, which is fine. But en masse, how do you do this? Well, the problem we've got is, remember back in the day when not everyone knew how to use a computer, right? But then you start getting taught at school, this is, this thing called Microsoft and it's Word. And then, employers could say, oh, if you don't have Microsoft Word skills, you don't get a job, right? That happened maybe over 10 years. This has happened over a year. Or maybe the top's over 2, right? So you now have this bit where it's something like 34% of leaders wouldn't hire someone without AI skills. Yeah. But they also don't have the AI skills themselves.
Yeah.
So you have this double whammy. Leadership, the most important thing you can do right now is train your leadership. Because that's the most important thing. Like, most leaders haven't been trained in this, but my goodness, why would they be? It's been a year. Like, it wasn't in people's thinking 2 years ago, even though it should have been. So it wasn't on last year's financials. So it's not in the budget. But it has to be next year. If you literally are like going, oh, we don't have an AI training budget next year, then you have to fundamentally think of what you're doing as a company.
Yeah.
Because that's insane. If you're literally saying, oh, we don't know what we're going to do with Copilot licenses, well, that's the same as saying we're not sure we're going to buy laptops. It's not an acceptable it's not an acceptable thing to be able to say as a leader. So you've got to give people the skills with training. You've got to give them the resources with AI stuff, and you've got to give them some kind of framework of understanding, which is your policy. And that has to be put in place as quickly as possible. Otherwise, you create anxiety and frustration and fear. And that's why people leave. Yeah. And that's, of course, this is in a very, very, very bad job market, and people are still leaving, right? In a terrifying job market where there's less and less jobs. The point that you make about the Deloitte thing, all this is AI stop thing, is because they're not trained in how to use AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is the scary thing. They're not trained in how to use AI. And these are consultants who talk about technology, but they're not trained in how to use AI. So just imagine who else is not trained how to use AI. Yeah. Also, they're not doing the basics. Like, I can guarantee you they didn't pick the right AI. Like, not picking the right LLM is like not picking the right person to work with.
Yeah.
It's
that's such a,
fundamental.
I'm just going to just re-say that that's a really big point, isn't it? Like, the selection process of AI is as important as the selection process of people. Have I exaggerated what you've said, or is that correct?
No. It's exactly what I say. The way to look at it, man, I've said this now in my keynotes more, but look at AI as an automated intern. Like, it's an intern. It's not your boss. Don't give it strategically important work to do. Understand it has limitations. But for goodness sake, if you could have 5 interns for £100 a month, you'd get 5 interns, right?
Yeah.
Now, each one of them would be good at something and bad at something else. So you wouldn't ask Jimmy to go and do the graphic design stuff because Jimmy's rubbish at graphic design, but he's amazing at maths. Yeah. But people do this all the time. Literally, people go, oh, this AI slop that's come out. Oh my God, you should see this report. It was rubbish. Number one, you gave it to one AI. That's like giving it to one intern. And then you're expecting, literally, and then you sold that report to somebody else and made a markup of like £400,000. and then you're going around and saying, well, the problem with AI is that's not a problem with AI. That's a problem with you. Yeah. It's a leadership problem. That is a lack of AI policy, a lack of AI training, a lack of leadership, and a greed motivation, which is off the scale.
Totally.
Now, those companies, and it does make me smile. You look at the big 4 and look at the other ones. You look at the announcements that are coming out. A, they're laying off people, but B, they're now saying you won't get a job unless you're AI trained.
Yeah. Like,
that's essentially literally you've just said, we are rolling out this AI training. If you don't go on it, you don't have a job. And people are like, well, that's not right. No, it is. That's exactly what you should do.
Yeah.
Just like if you can't use Excel, then you shouldn't be doing this. If you
Yeah.
can't write an email and use a computer, you shouldn't be, it's the same level, right?
Yeah.
So I think we've got to
I
be,
still, on the training thing, Dan, I still remember at the beginning of my career, some great salespeople that they couldn't or wouldn't adapt to the email world.
wouldn't, yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember specifically one guy being like the top guy when I got there, but it just tipped over where you needed to email your quotes over and blow by it. And he was the best face to face person. And maybe the company could have supported him better, but I remember that transition and then this like sad decline of the guy. And I think about that now and think about, right, how are you training yourself to make sure you can use these tools?
Yeah, and but just imagine if that guy was the boss, right, or the leader, or the CEO of the
Yeah,
company, and he couldn't leave and refused to leave and wasn't self-aware enough and wasn't emotionally intelligent. Because I can remember bosses who had secretaries because they refused to do emails. Yeah,
yeah,
but now we've got leaders who refuse to do AI.
yeah,
Yeah, or maybe not even refuse to do it, just too busy. And I
yeah,
talk to leaders all the time about this, and I train leadership teams, and most of the time it's, oh my, we just haven't had time to sit down and do this.
yeah,
But it should be the top thing on your agenda. You know what I mean? Like if you're aware of the situation we're in, which is why I talk about the fifth industrial revolution, we're not in a place where we can say we're going to do this next year or in 2 years' time. And people are saying to me, oh, what's going to happen in 5 years? Well, the honest answer is that most jobs, as you know, won't exist because AI will, because the tasks in that job was a bundle of tasks and those tasks will be done with AI. Now,
yeah,
does that job therefore exist? Well, in my mind, no. The work will, the business will, and this is what we talk about organizational intelligence and independent intelligence in this near future. And it is now, Matt, because of what's just happened with AI. It's now. I presumed it was next year. It's now. You will have to grab hold of this learning mechanism so quickly because people will start building their own weird and wonderful stuff, which will completely F up your company.
yeah,
Yeah. A, because they think AI is cleverer than it is, but B, because you let them just go and do mad stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. And we didn't used to. Like, can you not remember? You can remember. Do you remember when you weren't about to try to grab my iPhone? Do you remember when you had to have a certain phone when you're in the office? You had to have a BlackBerry.
yeah,
Everyone had to have a BlackBerry, right? You weren't allowed to bring an iPhone. You brought an iPhone and the CTO, shot you because, oh my God, that can't go on the internet and it'll kill us all, right? But it wasn't it. We laugh about it, but that was 5 years. I was there. I did
yeah,
stuff in mobile and telecoms. It was 5 years of that pain. And I'm not saying CTOs, you were lying, but my goodness, it changed relatively quickly, didn't it?
yeah,
Now it's bring your own AI to work, but people are
yeah.
doing it secretly.
I
And
also
that's
on
scary.
your example, Dan, of company and innovation and competition, the example that I want to bring out on that when you were talking is the danger of competitiveness scaled up to a level that you've never had to compete before. So say I'm just going to try and make a company up. Let's just say you make a technology that is used in like the food industry
Mhm.
and everyone uses that and you have 3 or 4 competitors. There could be 10,000 pound people around the world in the past that compete with you. Now experiments can be run to build 1 million versions of that in one day, and then they don't care whether they fail because they just keep trying them until the one that they get beats you. Like this is the scale of competition you're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. So, and this is why it's exciting from the HR and a kind of an HR and a leadership point of view, right? So I think there's and I've been talking about this for a long time, which is you've been hiring. I've got to be careful with words here. I think now about more than half HR leaders, I can't remember the exact percentage, but they're realizing that degrees aren't that important anymore. I've been
Yeah,
talking about that for a very long time because the ability to learn is not curtailed by degree. I mean, I did law at university, but I barely use it now, right? But that was a very long time ago. Unless you do something which is extremely specialist, I don't think that those degrees are important. But it's actually it's more thinking about the soft skills. Yeah. And those soft skills will become the hard skills. And the reason why I'm talking about it like this is because one of those soft skills, not only is it collaboration points, but it's also being curious and, self-learning and building stuff and all the rest of it. Now, your best employees now, because of AI, have been given a superpower. Yeah, that superpower is really up for them to control. Like, if we all had replicators, what would happen? Yeah, replicate, those Star Trek things. I'm sorry, I'm a bit geeky, but you go to the machine, you ask for anything, and it gives you this thing, right?
yeah,
We're kind of in that. We're in almost a world of abundance kind of moment, and people don't realize it at this moment in time. So the person who's very bright in this world no longer has to be able to code particularly well but or even a tool, because I don't code. But what they can do, they can go to something and say, "Hey, I would like a SaaS that does, or software as a service that does this. I
yeah,
really need it to be able to do this." Yeah, and it used to be that you had to be techie or tech-minded to be able to get that outcome. And so you needed to create a tech company. Like, your Flock, we didn't get our third round of funding. This was the HR tech company and AI kind of company that I had several years ago. I still think we're onto something there, by the way, with data in what the world is. In fact, actually, the Personio report proves that we're in the right spot about data. But anyway, so same with what you do. It's fantastic. It works. That's why it works so well. So fair play to you. But now people can then look at it and go, oh, I quite like the idea of your Flock, but I want to build one just for my company or just for me. Yeah. And they can.
Yeah.
And this is the scary thing. It's what you call vibe coding now. And I won't go too geeky and go on too much. I'm hoping I won't. But that thing basically is a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity, but it's not for anybody except maybe OpenAI and maybe 3 or 4 other companies.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is for NVIDIA, the people who make the chips. It is for OpenAI that make the LLMs. And it might be for something, a kind of wraparound of the LLM like Replit or something, which helps you do that thing.
Yeah.
But it destroys all those other companies. And it does so overnight. And that's why it's so exciting or terrifying what OpenAI have just done, which is OpenAI have said, and I talked about this a while ago, I said, 2025 will be the year of the AI agent. And what I meant by that, it would be the birth of the AI agent movement. And what I mean by AI agent is autonomous units that act a little bit like a human being and make their own minds about stuff, but do cool stuff. We go beyond the, I want you to do this, to the machine starts to think about for itself a little bit about what it could do. Yeah. It also can interact with the internet and it can do all those other cool things that you'd want it to do. If it was like a real born intern, like a real live intern, you'd want to go, oh, could you just sort this out for me? And then it goes and sorts this out. Yeah. We're now in this place where AI agents and AI agency isn't a futuristic concept. Far from it. It's now. I presumed it would be next year, but it's now. Because OpenAI have just said, we're now going to give you a marketplace where you can build 1 million of these things. And you can also sell them and use them.
Yeah. And then that's, again, you use back to our building analogy. You got these diggers out there building cities, but that takes times and generations, doesn't it? And the government are finding that at the moment to build homes. But you can do this in seconds. I've done it I coach youth football, and I've vibe coded something just to basically keep me on top of stats. Because at the end of the season, I want all the stats, because at the beginning of this season, I didn't keep all the stats. So when it came to my speech, it was just a little thing. I wanted information that I could use, but now I've built something, but it will never get out there. It's just for me. But there's going to be people building stuff where they go, that's mass market. That is mass market. Every person who walks into Waitrose or Asda or Aldi needs that. And then suddenly you find out they're on the front page of Forbes because they've built what they call an application company is what I've heard they've been phrased as.
No, exactly. But what I love is your book, right? Because this is what I think is going to happen more, right? Because not everyone's, this is why I talk about independent intelligence in the book, because that is independent intelligence, right? The intelligence to realize that you have an opportunity. You're not going to ask your leader for the CTO's budget to build this thing, but you're going to build it yourself. Yeah. Now, the opportunity, of course, is a company culture, because even when you say the word CTO budget, you can feel everyone's bottoms clenching, right? Because you just wouldn't even go to the tech team and ask them. But the irony, of course, being is you've only got 2 choices here with the AI, and without an AI policy, you're kind of screwed. And it really should be get everyone who's excited by this. I'm working with companies to produce this exact thing. But get everyone that's excited by this to become AI champions, to teach the other people about this, but then also have a CTO and a tech team underneath all this that gets these requests in and builds the stuff. They build the stuff, because what you actually ironically don't want, and this is the vibe coding movement, and don't get me wrong, I have done this. I've vibe coded 5 products this year. You don't actually 4.5. I could say 4. It's not the point. But you don't want all your employees to be vibe coding, because it's inherently dangerous from a cybersecurity point of view. It's really dangerous. It's really dangerous. They are so dangerous. They have no cybersecurity at all. Now, you might think, well, Dan, why do you care about this? Well, you care about it if it's a business. You don't care about this if it's just you and your stats and your football team. But you should care about it if it's business. But what happens if it's not your business?
Yeah.
Now, do you care? And the only way we can make people care is we explain to them why they should care.
Yeah.
But most employees, and it's not a disrespect, I've been an employee, I've been a boss, I've been a leader of some things, and I'm now independent, but you've got to make people aware that there is a reason, which isn't just you're going to lose your job.
Yes.
Because you'd have an AI policy. So what happens right now, Matt, and this is a question for everyone who's in a team, if somebody vibe codes something together and uses it, can you fire them? Because does it break the AI policy? Does it break your employee policy? Does it break anything in HR? It's a stick. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't realize right now, and this is why lawyers are rubbing their hands and lots of other people are very happy about it. But it's something you've got to think about. But what we've
Yeah.
got to do is not think about it in a kind of fearful way. We've got to think, my goodness, what an amazing opportunity. If everyone starts to build these things using data and all this other stuff to enrich an experience, which is what you're talking about your football app, they do the same for their job. They become 20 or 40% more productive. That's the opportunity of a lifetime. Suddenly everyone becomes more productive. The question for us as leaders is, if everyone becomes more productive and everybody acts like their own mini business and everybody is more independent and has more power, what do we do as leaders? Because the way you lead a team of superheroes has to be different to the way you're going to lead 1,000 people.
Yeah. And I think where, for me, where that always goes back to the original conversation about the hole in the ground, which is AI is making people more efficient, but is it making them more effective? Because and that's your role as leader. How do we
Yeah.
make the team effective? Because it doesn't matter if you're the most efficient digger of that hole, if it isn't effective in what you're actually doing it for. Is it too deep? Is it in the wrong place? Is it going in the wrong direction? Dan, I realized I'm conscious of time. I've got 4 questions I want to power ask you quickly. So
Okay.
we're gonna whip through these really quick.
Okay.
46% of HR leaders struggle to attract under 30s, yet this generation wants clear progression, skills development, and flexibility. People are worried about this. Just from an AI perspective, just talk us how AI could help that conundrum for Gen Z.
Well, I think one of the big things, especially around Gen Z, if you look at the Daniel Priestley did some great work on this. I don't know if you know the entrepreneur Daniel Priestley, but he talked about the fact that same generation thinks something ridiculous, like 51% of them have got a side hustle. Right
Yeah.
now, that should be I think that's worrying for society. It's also, but amazing, what an entrepreneurial generation if that is the case. Yeah. So you have to really expect them to be entrepreneurial and to be independent thinking. Now, if
Yeah.
that's the case, you've got to arm them. You've got to make sure they've got the right training. You've got to make sure you've got the right environment and it's optimistic and it's fun and it's togetherness, because these people will leave because it's not those things. So
Yeah.
this then brings in, why are we giving people radical flexibility? Well, radical flexibility means just an amazing amount of productivity increase. you
Yeah.
know, and the only way you can do that is with a different culture. And I think the only way we're going to get younger people back into work, it's the way that we might like to call it, is we have to create a completely new way of thinking and enjoying life.
Yeah.
And
And with
unfortunately, for a lot of leaders, that's really hard to do. And I don't have any silver bullets, but I would say, first things first, get them on AI, get them trained up, get yourselves trained up, and then start thinking what amazing things they can do, and then support them when they're being amazing doing the stuff.
Yeah. And that's where I think having some optimism is so important, isn't it? If you think, we used a bit of history before. I think, didn't Napoleon say the UK was a nation of shopkeepers or something like
Shopkeepers,
that?
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
We're struggling with economic growth at the moment, and maybe sometimes we're asking the wrong questions, because what if we were a nation of entrepreneurs that were doing lots of this kind of stuff, and that was generating more than the traditional work system where you have X amount of companies where lots of people work for. Maybe there is a huge opportunity here for, I'm talking just for the UK, I know we've got an international audience, but to actually lead the economy in a really entrepreneurial way, because suddenly these tools are available at the fraction of the cost to lead us out of what is a serious problem at the moment. Like, until the economy's fixed, a lot of these other issues that we're facing, we're going to keep going back to it because there isn't the money to do the stuff that everyone wants to do.
Well, again, it's how advanced are our leaders in the way they're thinking around data and culture, right? I mean, this is one of the biggest things. Is like
Mm.
the secret source of your company will be your company culture, and that will be data driven. And if it's not data driven, you're in trouble. So you look at,
Yeah,
again, in this report, look at I think it's something only like 7% of people would be considered to be advanced decision makers around data. That's a worry. That's a
yeah,
worry, because data is the only thing, and feedback response mechanisms. That's the only thing you can do to build a better culture. Oh
yeah,
yes, you can bring in ping pong tables and all the other bullshit that people thought was important before, but it's data driven, right? But if you're looking at how you can be clever with this stuff and how do we do it as a nation, well, it's got to be data driven. It's the same as running a company, except remember, and this is really important, running a country has people in it and the public sector in it. Yeah. And we cannot just do it with efficiency and profit. It's too important. We cannot F up people's lives by trying to do what America's doing and running the whole thing like a company. Because it's
Yeah,
not a company, it's a country. But the country
absolutely.
can become more entrepreneurial because they use AI. And I'm hoping that the politicians realize this. But again, let's be honest. I thought we had a generation to do this. And now we've only got a couple of years. Now,
Yeah,
politicians and politics doesn't move quickly. People, they do about certain things, like you can make people xenophobic real quick, but can you
yeah,
make them entrepreneurial real quick? And
yeah.
actually, is there a political appetite for making us more entrepreneurial? I'm not 100% sure there is, Matt, I'm afraid.
It's a good question. It's a good question. One we should definitely come back to, but I've got two more stats to hit you with.
Okay, sorry, mate.
This was for me the biggest shock in the report. You've touched on this multiple times, but I'm just going to read it out. Only 7% of HR leaders are advanced decision makers who blend data with documentation. That shocked me. That really did shock me, because we have people coming to our events that have now been, last year it was people who've been out of work for 2 years. We're now getting people coming out of work that have been out of work for 3 years. A pretty serious
Wow.
situation. People that you would meet and think they're really good practitioners, the type of people they turn up for an interview, but they're out of work. And there are many different reasons, but one of them is the adaptation of companies needing senior professionals to be able to deal with data.
Yep.
Um, can you give us one specific AI use case that could help the other 93% level up their decision making without overwhelming them? Because if you are out of work, you've never seen yourself, and these are young people, Dan. These
Oh, yeah, totally. We've got a whole
young
generation
people.
that's in trouble, basically. We could
Yeah.
bore you with the stats on it, but absolutely.
So how does someone, let's take someone that's 2 years, been out of work for 2 years. They're looking at all this going on. They've got a lot to add to HR. What could they do to level up?
Well, if you've been out of work for that long, and again, I'm going to come back to this independent intelligence, right? Like if you've been out of work for more than 3 months and you haven't taught yourself about AI, then it's kind of your fault. And I know that sounds a bit harsh, but literally the AI courses, like if you don't know about prompt engineering and you've been out of work for 2 years, prompt engineering, I mean, I'll sell you my course for like 10 quid. I'll give it you. I mean, if you've been out of work for 2 years, you don't know anything about prompt engineering, talk to Matt, send him a DM. I will give you my course for free, because my God, you need to go on that course, right? And it's like an hour. Like it's an hour. So just go on the course. It's online. If you're listening to this, you're already online. Go and do that course free. And I'll give it you, I can't give you 100% free, 98% off. You have to pay 2% because Stripe does a thing with it. Anyway, not paying for you to do my course, for goodness sake. But I'm so passionate about it because that's so important to do. And if you've been out of work for that long, if you've already started playing around with AI, and loads of people have, right? Then start thinking about, okay, what's the next bit? Now, if it's data, then you start thinking, which is the AI that's going to be best at data? And if you don't know the answer to that, that's what you need to find out. And I'm
Yeah,
talking about what massive LLM. I'm not talking about what SaaS product you need to buy, what software as a service product you need to buy, or what application. Just out of the 4 or 5 big ones, what's good at that one? Yeah.
yeah,
So same with research. If you want to go doing research, you've got to use Perplexity because Perplexity is the best for research. If you're using stuff with data, I would argue it's Gemini. You could argue right now it's most probably Claude's taken over because of 4.5, but I'm going to go with Gemini, right? If you're doing stuff in coding, you're definitely going to be using Claude. Again, but there could be arguments about what type of coding you're doing. But if you're talking about HR and these other things, you've got to be able to turn up to your interview and say that you're proficient with these things, just like I know how to use Microsoft Word, right? Like it used to be, I still don't know how to use a pivot table, by the way. I just know they exist, right? But I know that certain people who could do it were amazing. They turn up to there and say, I do pivots and pivot table. Oh my God, it's an Excel genius. It's 20 years ago, right? The same principle now would be this. If you go up and you're asking the right questions. So what is the AI policy for the company? What is the CTO strategy in the roadmap for this? Because you've got to remember, internal comms, HR, all these things, they're all going to be amalgamated into a different role. And this is what people are missing. The reason why there might not be those jobs out there is because we don't need people to do that role anymore, because
yeah,
it's been amalgamated into something else. Like the happiness officer, as people smile at me whenever I say, I think it's going to be one of the biggest jobs that you'll be able to do for companies. But that happiness officer will be data driven and will have a variety of AI tools to make sure, but it'll be called in the soft terms of HR happiness. It'll be
yeah,
literally be called, it's happiness rather than HR, should I say. HR's got to become a lot more humane. We've got to become more emotionally intelligent, but internal comms has got to become a lot more data heavy. And we've got to do things on scale. And the only way you can do that is with AI. So if you've
yeah,
been out of work for a long time and you literally have, you could just go on YouTube and learn it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no barrier to learning about AI because it's just time. It's not even time and resources. Literally half this stuff you could learn for free. I'm not
Yeah.
saying they're the best things you learn for free, but it might only be £100 you have to spend. And that's on you getting a new job. I mean, I don't get it, Matt, but I'm a bit weird because I start businesses all the time. So I'm just a bit odd.
I think because you're, and it also, I suppose, is a good place to bring it into a summary, which is you're excited by the change, aren't you? And some people fear it. Um, I think the thing that I'm going to leave everyone to is to channel Jeff Mainwood, who's someone I just went on his LinkedIn to check when I interviewed him. I interviewed him in Canterbury in 2013. And this is where, for me, the parallels are. If I just put myself in the interviewer situation now of someone that's
Mm.
been out of work, I never forget Jeff's interview because it was like we were working on some Google Analytics stuff. And I remember generally when you're being interviewed, it's kind of like you're opposite each other. And Jeff turned up with an iPad and he came round to the other side of the table that I was sitting on and he showed me something that was really insightful that I didn't know. And the reason I don't have any shares in Dan's organization or any reason to say this, but the reason courses like that are so powerful because if I was interviewing someone and they said to me, I was out of work for 2 years and then I went on Dan's course and now I'm doing this and now this is how I look at the world differently. And look at this, Matt. Look at this. Like when someone turns up for an interview and they show you something, they educate you and teach you something, it's a really exciting moment because you stop the question set of back and forth, and it becomes a really exciting conversation. And you think, and then you start imagining that person in your organization.
Exactly. And you've got to win, right? Because you're going to go in almost like you're a consultant with a consultant's mindset because you've got to add value, right? And if you're adding
Yeah,
value and you're saying, okay, yeah, but have you looked at this with AI? Have you done this with AI? Have you done this with this thing? Then, of course, the whole thing changes. And this is the thing about HR leaders now looking at this and other leaders are looking at, they'd rather, hire you because of your aptitude and because of the fact you're doing stuff, right? Like CVs and all these other things that are kind of dead. I mean, the first question I'd ask someone if I was going to hire people, it would be, what have you done over the last 6 months that makes you excited? Like, what have you built? What have you done? And if someone's like, I don't really do anything apart from work, I don't know if I'd hire them because I'd be like, do you know the world we live in? Like, you could do anything. What's your hobby? Like your great story about it. I'd be more excited by your story, about the fact that you vibe coded an app for your football thing. Because I'd be
yeah,
like, that's the kind of person you need to work with and work, because they are doing stuff with this amazing technology, not just sitting there
yeah,
watching cat videos and then moaning that that the world isn't quite right. I mean,
yeah.
that again bit me.
I think that's the perfect place to leave it. We can't spend our time moaning about stuff and watching cat
No,
videos. We need
you
to get
I
out
mean,
there and
right. So we have two choices. We are leaving it now. We've got two choices. I'm just gonna wrap in that one. Wrap
yeah,
it up slightly if I can. With this whole thing about the fifth industrial revolution, right? So keep that in your head when this is happening, because if you don't have that way of thinking about it, I think Wayne Dyer said it. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. If you look at this as a normal time, then yes, you can start blaming yourself and saying, "Oh my goodness, this is all happening to me," and blah blah. Don't look at it as normal times. This is not normal times. These are revolutionary times.
mm,
And what would you do in a revolution? Well, you'd act very differently because you knew the world was going to rapidly change. So in
yeah,
this moment, yeah, we're all going to be scared. We're all going to have anxiety. We are all going to be uncertain. That's a revolution. But what you
yeah,
have to do, of course, is lead. You have to lead. And are you leading people? And if you're not leading people, you've got to lead yourself. So you've got to be massively proactive. You've got
yeah,
to have a desire, not for change to happen, because change always happens, the only constant, but for you to ride that change out and for
yeah,
your life to get better. And I think we talked off air when we talked about the surfing thing.
yeah,
This is a giant wave which is happening, and you can't control the wave,
yeah,
but you can certainly control how you surf the wave. And
yeah,
by the way, it's just going to be you. Nobody's coming to save you. Okay,
yeah,
it's just you. Now, you might think that's a pessimistic thing to say, but if you really
yeah,
think about it, if you're a surfer and if you've never surfed before and you've got a surfboard and you've learnt a bit, then you can ride a wave quite well. But this amazing thing with AI is it's not even like you've got a surfboard. You're most probably more like you've got your own little boat which has got an outboard motor on it. Like
yeah,
literally, the AI is going to do most of the work for you. And on that note, I'd always say make sure that you can train yourself up so you know how to use that outboard motor. Make sure you've got the right petrol in it, motivation, but also make sure you're picking the right one, and just make
yeah,
sure that you are making the most of this opportunity. Because if you don't, then I think we're going to live in a time where lots of massive companies will not be hiring as much.
yeah.
And this, by the way, is an opportunity. It means you can start working on personal things that maybe you didn't think or have the opportunity to work for before. And
Yeah.
when we met, Matt, I talk wasn't my talk was the future of work isn't what you think, it's not what you feel, it's what you love. I still believe that because I think that's the whole point. AI can't love the work that it does, but you can, and that's where you can make the
Yeah.
difference.
And I feel like, Dan, you're that AI uncle of everyone listening in today, which is it's that uncle that loves you enough to just tell you that you need to sort some stuff out, even if it sometimes hurts. And I love that, Dan. And I reflect back on some of these changes as well, where I've got to the point in the office now, like sometimes you're telling people about some of these previous opportunities and they kind of wish they were there. But also when you're there, sometimes you don't take advantage of it, do you? Like the one that I've stopped talking about to younger people in the office, but is 100% mortgages. Like when I got my first flat, it was 100% mortgage and
Mental.
anyone could have done it, but most
Yeah.
people didn't. And also I had to pay £500 as well, but I didn't have £500, so they went, "Oh, don't worry, we'll put it on the mortgage." So it's more than 100. It was more than 100%. The whole dot-com boom, and there was the bust bit as well, early 2000s. Like I was there when we worked with Gymshark when these companies went, "You know what? We'll take this product and we'll put it online." And there was so many people going, "No, no, 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 no. A company like Gymshark will never make it." And then I think I got out of Bitcoin at $8,000. I think it's something like 120,000. These
At least
things
you're in it
are
though. At
there.
least you're in it.
Sorry?
And I would just say on because I've got to be careful here because people might then start buying Bitcoin and AI stocks because of
Yeah,
this thing. That side, you've got to remember the AI bubble is a huge bubble at this moment in time, right? So
yeah,
this is just before there's going to be a crash and wipe off 40% of the companies. But you've got to remember that is part of the process. Like
absolutely.
the e-commerce stuff that happened, that bubble burst, but it didn't get rid of e-commerce, did it? E-commerce
Yeah,
now is bigger than it's ever been, right? The AI bubble, even Jeff Bezos, even Sam Altman are saying this, it's a bubble. It is because everyone's throwing
yeah,
money at it. That gives us an amazing opportunity to use this stuff almost for free
yeah,
because there's no economic sensible behind it. There's no
yeah,
sense behind it, right? So use AI as much as you possibly can because it'll never be this cheap. Yeah.
yeah,
But when the bubble bursts, it will all go up in value. The other companies, the ones that are left standing, will become the only people in the
yeah,
party. But that bubble will burst. But don't
yeah,
worry about it unless you own tech stocks. It won't affect you at all.
yeah. And I think,
My advice is don't own tech stocks at the moment. Is what I'm trying to
yeah,
say.
I'll put that out there. None of this is a financial advice that Dan
Yeah.
might. Yeah, but but you're right. The bubble and the burst is also part of the process. So I'm in a WhatsApp group from my sort of like agency days because we brought up and sold an agency. There's a guy in there telling a story the other day. You know the whole Deloitte thing came out about the £400,000 for the AI report that the Australian government complained about. Go to TechCrunch if you want to read the actual article. Um, he put in there a story about how they charged £400,000 to build the first Guinness World Records website.
Okay.
So £400,000. But then the story gets even more. That's just what the consultancy paid them as the agency. So they obviously nobody knows how much Guinness
Exactly what the
paid for the
market was.
first website. But that dot-com boom bust had to happen because people were paying ridiculous money for which is basically a website that people could build in their bedrooms. And
Yeah.
that some of that, this is going to be the process, isn't it? That there is going to be there's going to be a lot of change. But the thing that I take from today, Dan, is that you've got to take responsibility for your own learning. But there are places you can go out there and actually get support rather than just going off and uploading confidential information.
I mean, the other thing is, and if you're a leader, and please, if you're not a leader, please go and talk to your leaders about the fact because they should be training you in this. It's not
Yeah,
fair that we just say, well, employees are training themselves, but we don't want them to train themselves. Okay, well then have you trained them? Like literally, I'm working on AI policy with a company. I won't say the name of them. And their AI policy is literally, refer to the training we gave you. And they haven't given them any training yet. And I'm like, you can't do that. I can't go out. So yeah, don't blame yourself for it. But obviously be proactive and do it yourself. Because of course the cliche is, AI is not going to replace you, but it's somebody using AI that most probably will. I think we've got to, even though no one really likes it as a commentary now, I started saying that about 3 years ago, it's more relevant now, especially in a lot of the places in where the listeners are coming from HR and these other areas. My goodness, it's never been more true for HR and internal comms than it is now.
yeah. Dan, I know it's been a good podcast because that coffee behind me, I've not even had a chance to get there and it's probably cold now. So I'm just going to say thank you for making my coffee cold. I've really enjoyed today and the listeners will have taken a lot. And I hope everyone that heard Dan's tough words, the uncle of AI, I hope you took it in the best. And if you do make changes, please message us.
Yeah, and find me on LinkedIn. And if you want any help with this stuff, go and find me on LinkedIn. Especially if you listen to this, I will send you that prompt engineering course for 98% off because I promised on a live podcast that I would. So I'll have to now. So there you go. Come find me, Dan Södergren on LinkedIn. Matt, always a pleasure. Never a chore, mate. Love talking with you.
Thanks, Dan.